Today I'm going to show you guys how to install a set of Flying Miata sway bars and a set of Racing Beat sway bar blocks on a 2001 Mazda Miata. So this process should be pretty much exactly the same for Flying Miata sway bars, Racing Beat sway bars, whatever other brand aftermarket sway bars you're putting in. Your sway bar basically works to effectively raise the spring rate of your suspension without having the negative side effects of having an increased spring rate. If you go over a speed bump, the whole thing is just going to go up at the same time because both suspensions are moving, and so your sway bar is basically going to have zero effect there, which means that when you're hitting bumps on the road or dips and stuff, it's not going to make your car ride like it's got super stiff springs. But when you go to make a turn and the car's leaning to one side, this is going to fight that, and so when this side suspension compresses, it's going to effectively try and compress the other side suspension, which is going to make it lean back. So when the car's leaning to this side, it's going to make that side suspension come up and then pull it back flat. Long story short, stiffer sway bars or thicker sway bars make your car handle better and make it corner more flat. What I also purchased, which I would recommend for anybody who's running an aftermarket sway bar, even people running stock sway bars, is a set of the Racing Beat sway bar blocks. Well, I'll show you a picture. So what these basically do is they prevent your sway bar mounts from flexing as much, which has been tested and tried to prevent them from cracking like they tend to do under stress. When you're adding a stiffer sway bar, you're going to be putting a lot more stress on the already susceptible sway bar mounting points, and so these are sort of a reinforcing thing, and they're totally worth the money. The Racing Beat sway bar blocks sell for $35 plus shipping from Racing Beat. I paid $25 shipped. And then the sway bars from Flying Miata sell for $209 plus shipping, which is about $30. And I paid $150 shipped for these. Plus mine came with brand new end links, which is nice. Sway bars are one of the few items that I don't hesitate to buy used, because unless they're really all rusted up, sway bars are still pretty good used. The first step is going to be to jack up the front of the car. I'm going to be working on the front and then on the rear separately. As always, when you're jacking up a car, be sure to use proper jack stands and put wheel chocks on the rear of the car, emergency brake on. I like to get the car way up in the air, so I got plenty of room to work. The next step is going to be to remove the splash guard under the engine. To undo the splash guard, there are 3 screws, which should be around 10 mil at the front of the splash guard, right up by the radiator. Then in the back, by your giant oil leak in your oil pan, you've got 2 more, which I believe are 10 mil. And then you'll have one bolt that goes in that hole, and then got the 10 mil as well. Bolt that goes in that hole, and then up inside here is a nut. You can see it right there. That's a pain in the ass. I always put that one back finger tight when I do it, because it's just there to hold the splash guard anyway. On this side there is no opening, but luckily mine is broken, so you can see it up in there again. So with that splash guard off, you can see the OEM sway bar. You're basically just going to undo those 2 bolts, and you're going to undo that top thing, these 2, and that top one. I'm actually going to undo the bottom because I'm replacing the end link as well. This is a good time to do that, you might as well. The sway bar end link nuts are 14 mil, and these bracket bolts are 12 mil. Once you take that off, the bar should just fall straight down. Be cautious, because even though it is smaller than the aftermarket one, it is still pretty heavy. With the bolts removed, you should be able to wiggle it out of the car. So here you can see the comparison between the stock bar And I have an NB2 and a special edition Miata with a sport suspension package, and so this is one of the thicker bars that come on any Miata, except for maybe the Mazda Speed Miata, but I think it's actually the same size in the front. So you can see the size difference, like the difference in thickness in this bar versus the other bar. It's just overall a thicker piece. You can get the specs from Fly Miata's website. So the recommendation is to not put these bushings on until the last second once you got it in place. They have a little cut inside so you can slip it over the bar rather than having to slide it along. But you do need to grease these. The best grease to use from what I've heard and read is white lithium grease. So you're just going to put a little bit inside each one of these bushings and throw them on right before you throw the brackets on. So with the blocks in place, I've got these all the way tightened up, so these sway bar brackets, as they were, are tightened all the way up. And now I'm just going to spin this nut upwards, and as I do that, it's going to push this block against the frame rail here, which is going to push this down, which is going to strengthen this mount right here. Go ahead and torque down all your bolts, clean up your grease. These are 20 foot-pounds and the end links are 30 foot-pounds. According to Fly Miata, you do not have to put the car on the ground to torque these down for a NB. Now just put the splash guard back on and you're done in the front of the car. Moving to the rear of the car, the process is going to be very similar, but it's even more important that you use wheel chocks because the front does not have any gears or emergency brake or anything. So use wheel chocks in the front, jack up the back, use jack stands. So in the back, much easier to get to. I think you're supposed to reuse the ones, the rear brackets. The Fly Miata front sway bars come with new brackets, but I think the rear brackets, you're supposed to reuse that. Mine came with some, and then you've got your same style thing there. So we're just gonna first take off those and take off those. If you're not replacing the end links, you'll only be undoing that end of the end link, but with those bolts undone, you should be able to wiggle this thing out of under the car. So here's a comparison, and you can see the rear bar is a lot thicker than the stock one. Yeah, I mean, that is a lot thicker. And the aftermarket sway bar, the Fly Miata sway bar, has a little dip there, which stops your bushings from being able to move back and forth very far. The rear stock one doesn't have that. Once again, you do want to grease up the bushings with some white lithium grease. So this is an issue that the instructions did talk about. It's hitting this heat shield, so you're just going to have to bend that little corner out of the way. So just like the front, these bolts are 20 foot-pounds and the end links are 30 foot-pounds. And with the NB Miatas, you can torque them to spec with the car in the air. With the NAs, you have to have weight on the wheels. Now just clean up the extra grease and you are done. So that's both sway bars installed. Took about an hour and a half in the front and 30 minutes in the back. Thanks for watching, and I cannot wait to take this thing for a drive.